This crochet stitch pattern has been on my radar for quite some time. I think it's because it's a textured stitch and I love textured stitches, but this is a different type of textured pattern that really sucks you in, draws in the eye, which is really neat. For this particular pattern, I am referring to it as the Plowing Seeds Square, just so that way it goes in theme with the other stitches that we're working with together. I've also seen this particular stitch being called the Slip Stitch Texture. If you've seen this stitch being referred to as any other name, please let us know in the comment section below. I always get fascinated by how many names a particular stitch can actually have. There is a free version to the pattern we're going to be playing with located on my blog, which is on my website, crochetwithtiffany.com. I'll put a link in the description section below so you can just click on that link and it'll take you directly to it. Now let's go over what materials that I used. Alright, so the materials that I'm using for the Plowing Seeds pattern for this particular square is Cascade Yarns 220 Superwash Merino wool in the color 01 or cream. So pretty. I love using this yarn. It is so soft and such a joy to work with. It is a solid size 3-weight yarn, so if you want to use what you have in your yarn stash at home, or you want to change the color, or you want to change the fiber, feel free to do so. The crochet hook I'm using is a G6 or 4.25 millimeter crochet hook, and then the regular stuff like the yarn needle, the scissors, the stitch marker, and a measuring tape to help make sure you're staying on gauge, on track with the size of your square, and that you stop when you need to stop. All right, let's go ahead and begin working up the Plowing Seeds pattern. This pattern is also known as the Slip Stitch Texture pattern. It's worked in a multiple stitch count of a multiple of 10 plus 6. For the square that I am making, I'm going to chain a total of 56 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 55, and 56. Great. For row 1, we're going to single crochet in the second chain from our crochet hook, and then make 1 single crochet stitch in every chain all the way across. Coming to the end of row 1, single crochet in that last chain there. Great, so this is how our row 1 should look, just a simple row of single crochet stitches. This is going to be a great foundation, make it a lot easier for us to work up that Plowing Seeds or Slip Stitch Texture pattern. All right, let's move on to row 2. Chain 1 and turn your work. You're going to begin row 2 by slip stitching in the back loop only of the first 5 stitches. So look at the top of your stitches, find that gorgeous V, back loop only, and slip stitch. Make sure your stitches are loose. If you work a tight stitch, maybe go up a crochet hook size, because if your stitches are too tight here, it's going to be impossible or very difficult for us to work into them in the next row. So total of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then the next 5 stitches, we're going to half double crochet in the back loop only. Half double crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Great. And that is the repeat pattern for row 2, is just 5 half double crochets in the back loop only, followed by 5 slip stitches in the back loop only. And then 5 half double crochets, back loop only, 5 slip stitches, back loop only. Repeating this pattern all the way across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 2 to show you how we close the row and move on to the next. Remember, keep your stitches light and loose. 5, and ending row 2 with 5 slip stitches in the back loop only. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Great. And this is what we're looking at the end of row 2. Very cool. All right, just as a heads up, for the rest of this particular pattern, all of our stitches are worked in the back loop only, just so you know. Moving on to row 3. For row 3, we're going to chain 2. 1, 2, and turn our work. That chain 2 does count as our very first half double crochet stitch, and we'll take that first stitch space. We are going to be working 4 more half double crochet stitches in the back loop only. Now, to help you out, to guide you, always look at the top of your work where you can find all of those glorious V stitches. Yarn over, skipping the first V, second V, half double crochet in the back loop only. 1, and 2. See, this is where slip stitching too tight can become a problem. All right, use the claw. 3 and 4. Awesome. So this beginning section where we're only making 4 stitches because that turning chain counted as a stitch, this messed me up a couple times, and I have a feeling it might mess up a couple other people as well. So just be very mindful if you're working your pattern and you get to the end of the row and all of a sudden you're noticing I'm ending and I am not making 5 stitches of this last stitch, or if you're noticing the pattern is kind of shifting a little bit, come back to the very beginning. I bet this is where we accidentally made our error in making 5 stitches instead of 4, which makes sense because this pattern is worked in groups of 5. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. So this is where I can see most of the mistakes happening. On top of each of the half double crochet stitches, we're going to slip stitch in the back loop only for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, if it helps, look at those V's. Turn your work, rotate it so you can see those actual loops. Then 5 half double crochets on top of the slip stitches. Again, all in back loop only. That's another thing I can see people doing, is accidentally forgetting the back loop only part and making actual stitches, which will completely change the pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and repeat all the way across. I think you got it. Again, 5 slip stitches in the back loop only, followed by 5 half double crochets in the back loop only. Continue on, and I'll meet you at the end of row 3 to show you how we close row 3 and move on to row 4. I'm now at the end of row 3, ending row 3 with 5 half double crochets in the back loop only. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Great. And this is what we're looking at the end of row 3. For row 4, we're actually going to mimic the row that we had below. This is going to help us have that open section for this pattern. So we're going to begin by chaining 2 and turning our work. Again, that chain 2 counts as our first half double crochet and takes that first stitch spot. Half double crochet, back loop only, in the next 4 stitches. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So make sure we count, starting with the chain 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 4 actual half double crochet stitches. We're good to move on. Followed by 5 slip stitches in the back loop only. And I think you got it. I think this looks familiar enough for you to move on. 5 half double crochets, back loop only, on top of the half double crochets, back loop only, and then 5 slip stitches, back loop only, on top of the 5 slip stitches. Right? Make sure you make those slip stitches loose, that way we can work easily into them moving forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will meet you at the end of row 4 to show you how we close the row and how row 5 looks different. And we're ending row 4 with 5 half double crochets in the back loop only. 2, 3, 4, and our 5th half double crochet is actually going to be in the second chain of that chain 2 from the row below. Remember, the chain 2 did count as a stitch, so we're going to make our last half double crochet in that second chain. And this is what our work will look like at the end of row 4. Very cool. Very neat. Okay, so to move forward, how row 5 is different. We're only going to chain 1 and turn our work. And look at what the other side of the work looks like. We have those beautiful gaps started. Now we're going to flip-flop that 5, 5, 5, 5 pattern. We only want the open gap, and then we're going to switch it. To begin row 5, we're going to start with 5 slip stitches in the back loop only, starting with the first stitch. 1, make them loose. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5 half double crochet, back loop only. And then you know the pattern, repeat. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Awesome. And go ahead and repeat the pattern all the way across for row 5. I'll meet you at the end, and I'll show you what to do for row 6. At the end of row 5 here, we're going to end with 5 slip stitches in the back loop only. 3, 4, our last stitch being in that second chain, 5. And this is what our work looks like at the end of row 5. Wow, that pattern is already popping. We can see how it's looking. It's got so much texture. Oh, it looks awesome. All right, for row 6, we're going to start by chaining 1 and turning our work. We're going to begin with 5 slip stitches in the back loop only. So looking at the top V's, starting in the very first stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, followed by 5 half double crochets in the back loop only. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then repeat. You got this. 5 slip stitches in the back loop only on top of slip stitches, and 5 half double crochets, back loop only, on top of half double crochets. Continue across, and I will meet you at the end of row 6 to show you what the repeat pattern will be for the rest of this project. 5, okay, and ending row 6 with 5 slip stitches in the back loop only. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Great. Now this is what we should be looking at the end of row 6. This is the back of the work, and the way you can tell is by looking at the other side. If we flip it, whoa, there is that gorgeous pattern that we're looking for. Isn't that neat? Oh, it's so, so cool. All right, so this particular pattern, we're just repeating row 3 through row 6 for as long as you need your project to be. For the square we're making, we're going to repeat row 3 through row 6 through the end of row 62 and then stop. There is no special last row that we need to make to close off the project. We just stop at the end of row 62. What we're going to see here is there is a fun pattern that is developing where we really don't even have to look at the pattern to know what we're supposed to do next. It's like a 2 and 2, 2, 2. Look at the beginning of your work. You're going to have 2 half double crochets stacked on top of each other. Half double crochet, followed by slip stitch, and then half double crochet, slip stitch, slip stitch. If that helps you, then great. I hope so. That way when you look and see, oh, we just did slip stitch, my next row is going to be half double crochets, so I need to chain 2. This is a row 3 repeat. That chain 2 counts as our first half double crochet stitch. So we will then move forward by making 4 half double crochets in the back loop only to begin the row. 2, 3, 4, and then you know what we would do next. The 5 slip stitches back loop only, and then 5 half double crochets back loop only, and repeating onward. Another way you can tell is if these half double crochets are, it's just half of a row. We want the half double crochets to be encased with a bottom row and a top row to create this really cool oval shape. We cannot leave it open like this. So make sure that you make another row where the half double crochets are on top of half double crochets to complete that shape that we desire. I hope these tricks help you out. I love this pattern so much that I actually created a chart with different blanket sizes that you could make with it, including their dimensions, how many chains that you will need to chain in the foundation row, how many stitches will be in each row, how many rows you're going to need to meet blanket length dimension. And I went one step further and included approximately how much yarn you're going to need to complete the blanket that you desire to make with this pattern. I think this would make a stunning baby blanket as there are no holes. It's completely solid and it's really, really pretty, but you could absolutely utilize this pattern for a regular throw blanket for an adult or so many other projects that you can come up with and think of. Have fun with this pattern. It is so neat. And it's one that you can really enjoy and relax to, especially once you get the hang of the repeat. You don't even have to look at the pattern anymore. You're just focusing on 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Now, some fun little finishing touches that I think would really make this particular pattern pop and really stand out. The border that I would put around this particular project is one that I think should have a lot of pow in and of itself. I don't think it's gonna compete by having a shell or fan border, something more intricate, having it be light, airy, edgy, maybe lacy. Even have something really fun like corkscrews coming off the sides of the 4 corners or along the edges would be so much fun. I really don't think that these kind of details will compete with the awesomeness happening in the inside of the main body of the blanket. I think that what will happen is having a very intricate detailed border will grab somebody's attention and then they're checking out all the awesomeness happening on the inside of the project. So this is obviously opposite of what I would normally say, where I'd be like, there's so much detail happening on the inside that you should do something plain on the outside to just bring the focal point in. No, I think that this particular stitch needs a fancy border. And I hope that those little ideas, these tips might help inspire you in however you choose to utilize this stitch. This square project is also part of my sampler blanket crochet along project for 2024. I hope that you make this square and play with the whole project, as there are so many fun stitches that we are going to go over and play with. Thank you so much for joining me today in this video. I hope you enjoyed this stitch. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye.